What is up, Star Trek fans? Welcome back to Task Force Viking. I'm Captain Ironsides, and today I'm bringing you another tabletop simulator attack wing match. In this match, we have a faction pure battle between the Federation and the Dominion. I'll be playing the Federation, and my opponent will be playing the Dominion. This is a practice match for the May Faction Pure Tournament in the Star Trek Attack Wing group on Tabletop Simulator. And this will give myself and my opponent the chance to test our fleets out and just see how they do, and see if there's any last minute tweaking we need to actually make. Before we go any further, let's take a few minutes and look at the fleets. I'm not going to do a fleet breakdown on this video. I'm just going to give you a chance to take a look at the cards in each fleet, and I will post a link in the description to the Utopia builds for each of these, so you can actually see the build list on Utopia as well. As you can see, my opponent's built a pretty interesting Dominion fleet. He put a heavy emphasis on being able to fire out of his rear arc. My fleet, I have actually nicknamed the Wolf Pack because the two Defiant class ships like to hunt as a pack, and then the Prometheus ship tends to act as a lone wolf, or at least that's the idea. I should point out that my opponent is a long-time player of Attack Wing. I'm still relatively new, and in this game we will be using the old rules for initiative, which I believe are based on factions rather than any kind of rolling of the dice. So if you're wondering how we determine who has initiative, it's the old rules that give initiative based on faction. On a side note, this is actually an interesting time to be a new player to Attack Wing. Some folks tend to prefer playing with older rules, some folks play with newer rules, and I honestly oftentimes don't know which is which when I'm playing. I don't know which ones are old, which ones are new, and it has created a bit of a conundrum for me as a new player, but it's not been anything that's been troublesome or anything that's made me want to walk away from the game. It's just been something that's a little bit odd and on occasion a little bit frustrating. Alright, so now it's time to move up to the actual placement of the fleets. My thought process here, because I have upgraded phasers on both of my Defiant class ships, I really want to try to square off with his fighters first, because I feel like I can take them off the map very quickly and make them pretty ineffective within a round or two. So that's what I'm going to try to do when I set this up. This is a variation on the first fleet I ever designed or built in Attack Wing, so I'm a little bit familiar with some of the mechanics here, but I still haven't quite figured out how to make this work the way I want it to. So that's part of the reason I wanted to play this practice game, is to kind of sort that out. And certainly there'll be plenty of mistakes made throughout this game that I had the opportunity to learn from. I've arranged my fleet in a straight line, nothing super creative. but I did get my opponent to oblige me by putting the fighters basically directly across from the Defiant class ships. So I feel pretty good about that. At this point, at the beginning of the game, my biggest concern is the Gore Portas with the Energy Dissipator weapon. That Energy Dissipator has the capacity and the potential to really wreak havoc on my Defiant class ships, and I've definitely marked that as something I need to get off the board quickly and something that I need to avoid as much as I possibly can. My plan is to basically fly straight at him, engage with the Defiant class ships, hopefully use the Prometheus class to fire a single volley of torpedoes at range 3, and then the next round use the 6 straight high-speed maneuver to fly past his fleet and fire another volley into the Gore Portas out of the rear arc on the next round, which would hopefully be enough to finish it. If not, my thought process would be that one of the Defiant ships would stop focusing on the fighters and finish off the Portas before it has a chance to use the Energy Dissipator. Alright, well, round 1 is in the books. Both fleets are moving out pretty quickly. In retrospect, I wish I would have done a 4 straight instead of a 3 straight, so that we could have had some shooting going on in this first round. That might also have been better to position my Prometheus to do a flyby in round 2. But again, you know, that's the purpose of a practice game. You get to learn and get a little bit better. Round 2 maneuvers are in the books, and we're ready for our first round of combat. Incidentally, it was about the time the second target lock appeared against the Prometheus that I realized I had made a pretty bad mistake in maneuvering here. A speed 4 in round 1 would have enabled me to get a single torpedo volley off, and then in this round I would have been able to fly past them with a speed 6 and shoot them out of the rear arc without having to get target locked and focused by every ship in his fleet like I am about to have happen. just for the sake of saving myself the narration every single round. The Defiant's pretty much always taking a battle stations. The Valiant is going to use Sulu for the ship's action, and then it will take a battle stations from Captain Picard. And the Prometheus class is going to use a Spock target lock plus a battle stations for the ship's action. First up will be the Valiant with Captain Picard shooting at his fighters. The initial attack roll is 2 crits and three crits and 1 hit. That will be enough to take out a token, so there's no need to spend the battle station token to convert my 1 battle station. I'll follow up the first attack with a second attack from upgraded phasers. That is a wonderful weapon to have against fighters. My second attack roll is 3 hits and a crit, which will of course take another token out. So that's 1 single attack from the Defiant that's taken out 2 tokens on the fighters already. Next up is the Gore Portas firing at the Prometheus. He will roll, I believe, his Quantum Torpedoes, which is a 5 dice attack. He gets 1 hit. I am unable to roll an evade, so the hit does go through. The Quantum Torpedoes he's using, anytime he scores a hit, he gets to add a hit, so he does end up taking 2 shields off the Prometheus with that attack. Next up will be Spock firing photon torpedoes at the Gore Portas. I actually wind up grabbing 7 dice and rolling them. It doesn't matter in this case because the magic of the new fed torpedoes gives me perfect quality. We do catch it in time, so he doesn't take the 7 hits, he only takes the 6 off of the Prometheus. The new Federation torpedoes convert blanks to battle stations, and after I convert them I will spend my battle stations token to get 6 hits on the Gore Portas. The next shots will come from the fighters again onto the Prometheus. Initially my opponent only rolls 2 hits, but he does spend his target lock and improves that roll to 4 hits and 1 crit. I do manage to roll evade on my single evade die, meaning I take 3 hits to the shields and then 1 crit will come through. Correction, I will take 1 hit and 1 crit. The crit is a stunned helmsman, which pretty much ruins my plans of flying past them and firing a single volley out of the rear arc. Next up, the Cardassian ship gets to take a crack at the Prometheus. It will be firing a 4 dice primary weapon attack, but it is range 1, so it gets a 5th dice, and he will roll 2 hits. I only have 2 hull remaining on the Prometheus, so it's absolutely critical that I roll an evade to keep that ship alive, and unfortunately my dice come up blank, and the Prometheus is destroyed in the first round. I would like to use the Defiant at this point to finish off the Gore Portas. Unfortunately, the Defiant does not have a shooting solution at the Gore Portas, so it will have no choice but to fire at the fighters. I get 2 hits and a battle station. I do decide to go ahead and spin the battle station even though I don't need to on this attack to guarantee a hit. I should have saved it for the second, but that's my mistake and my not being experienced against fighters. The second attack only rolls 1 crit. Fortunately, my opponent rolls blank on his defense die, and I do manage to take another token out of his fighters. So at the end of the first round of combat, he's lost 4 fighter tokens. I've lost the Prometheus, and I have managed to do pretty significant damage to the Gore Portas. Alright, round 3 maneuvers are in the books. I did select a 3 combat on both of my Defiant class ships. In retrospect, this was definitely a mistake. My opponent knew I was going to do this. I knew he knew I was going to do this because he's played me a few times and he knows how I tend to just fly in straight lines and turn around and come right back. So a smarter move would have just been to have slow rolled it and gone 1 straight ahead. And when he anticipated the come about with the Gore Portos, he would have been left out of arc. As it is, he just barely has arc on the Defiant, which is a very bad place to be when he has that energy dissipator within range 1. So I'm counting on the Valiant in the first volley of combat in this round to hopefully kill the Gore Portos so I don't have to take an energy dissipator hit. Bear in mind his ships can fire out of the rear arc, pretty much all of them. So the fact that he doesn't have firing solutions, it doesn't appear to have firing solutions, is really not a big problem for him in this round. The Valiant's going to take a shot at the Gore Portos. The initial roll is a single crit and 3 battle stations. Unfortunately, I did bump the Gore Portos, so I did not take an action this round with the Valiant, so I don't have a battle stations token, otherwise we would have been in business right here. I will place 2 time tokens on the Tasha Yar to re-roll 3 of my dice. Unfortunately, I only end up with 1 more hit, so the final attack roll is a hit and a crit. Although the crit is a warp core breach, I landed 1 die short, just 1 single hit short of killing that ship, which would have made a big difference at this point in the game. Next up, the Gore Portos is going to use the energy dissipator weapon on the Defiant. Spoiler alert, if you've seen the series Deep Space Nine, you probably have some idea of exactly how this is going to go. The energy dissipator attack roll is 2 hits and a crit. My Defiant rolls 4 dice for defense, 2 for the Defiant native agility, and 2 more for William Riker with a disabled captain. Unfortunately, I only roll 1 evade. Elizabeth Shelby does enable me to do a reroll, but it's not going to be enough to save me from getting hit by the energy dissipator. The energy dissipator doesn't do any damage, but it does disable all of my shields. It prevents me from attacking. It causes me to do a straight 1 maneuver only in the next round, and he does get to fire a second weapon against me if he hits with the energy dissipator. For the second attack, my opponent will use quantum torpedoes. He does roll 2 crits and a hit with those torpedoes. I do manage to roll a single evade plus a battle station. I do a re-roll from Elizabeth Shelby. It still comes up blank. William Riker does convert the battle station to an evade, so I will evade 2 of his hits on that attack. 2 hits to the Defiant leave me with 1 hull left. Next step, my opponent will use the 180 firing arc on his Cardassian warship to fire a 4-dice primary weapon attack. He rolls 3 hits and 1 crit. The Defiant, of course, is immune to crit, so he just converts it to 4 hits. I do still get my full complement of defense die. I managed to roll 2 evades and, 1 evade, 2 battle stations. Riker can convert 2 of those battle stations to evades, and I use my Elizabeth Shelby reroll and finally managed to get an evade with the reroll, so I do manage to avoid all the damage from that attack. The last shooting of the round will be done by the Hideki fighters. My opponent has equipped them with weapons that will enable them to fire out of the rear arc, so they will take a shot at the Defiant. The Hidekis roll 4 dice. They do get 2 hits and a crit. The Defiant is barely clinging to life with 1 hull, but I do still get my full complement of defense. My defense roll comes through for me. I get 2 evades and a battle station. Riker converts the battle station, and I again manage to avoid all damage from that attack. This build of the Defiant is actually a really strong defensive ship. Unfortunately, the energy dissipating weapon disabled my shields. That ship has 7 shields. That's a lot of defense to be disabled, and the hull on the Defiant is just not very strong at a quantity of 3. So a ship that's normally very hard to take off the board has been placed in dire straits almost immediately in this game. You will see an interruption in play here as I have to step away from my keyboard for just a minute. When I return, my opponent informs me that he neglected to add the bonus damage from his quantum torpedoes when he attacked the Defiant with the Gore Portas. That 1 extra damage would in fact have destroyed the Defiant. Again, it's a casual game. We both agree, yeah, you're right, that damage should have happened. We'll go ahead and pull it off the board. We're not going to do rerolls of the Hidekis or the Cardassian ship against the Valiant, but we'll go ahead and give the extra damage for the Defiant. So in fact, the Gore Portas did hit the Defiant with an energy dissipator and then followed up with torpedoes, which destroyed it. If you guys are fans of Deep Space Nine, which I certainly am, that's exactly the way the original Defiant ship was destroyed. So it's almost poetic justice to see that happen here in Attack Wing on Tabletop Simulator. So as we roll into the 4th round, my opponent still has all of his ships. 2 of my 3 ships are destroyed, but I honestly don't feel too terrible right now. The Gore Portas only has 1 hull left. The Hideki fighters are down quite a few tokens, and the Cardassian Gaylor ship I don't feel like is a really tremendous threat to me, so I'm not ready to panic yet. I know how powerful this Valiant build I have is, and I'm still pretty confident that this game could go my way, assuming I get the Gore Portas off the board in this next round. I absolutely cannot let it hit me with an energy dissipator. That would be a disaster. I assume at this point that my opponent's going to do a come-about maneuver with the Gore Portas. Fortunately, I am correct, and I managed to do a straight 1 and stay right underneath him, which puts him within a range 1 shot of me. This may not seem like a big deal, but it's absolutely critical that I not let him hit me with an energy dissipator. His build will allow him to have that weapon online every single turn. So once he hits me with it once, he'll hit me with it every turn going forward, and that would be the end of the game. So this actually was a critical maneuver, and fortunately it worked out perfectly for me. So although it's not an exciting point in the game, it is something I'm actually pretty proud of. Because I generally don't do a good job of maneuvering and or anticipating my opponent's moves, and in this case I got it perfect. At this point my opponent does remember to roll his warp core breach. He rolls a blank, so the ship is still technically alive. The Valiant will take a shot at range 1. It's a 5 dice primary weapon attack plus 1 for range 1. I will roll a natural 3 hits, 2 blanks, 1 battle station. The Gore Portas only has 1 hull left and only has 1 defense dice. There's no point in spending the battle station token or in using Natasha Yar. That is lethal damage any way you slice it, and with a shout of vengeance is mine, the Valiant takes revenge for its fellow Defiant class ship, the USS Defiant. The Gaylor ship will take advantage of its 180 firing arc and throw a 4 dice primary weapon. It will roll 2 hits against the Valiant. The Valiant will be rolling 4 defense dice, 2 for the Defiant class agility and 2 for the Hikaru Sulu action. I roll 1 evade, 1 battle station, 2 blanks, and Hikaru Sulu does convert 1 battle station, so I do manage to evade all damage in that attack. Next up, the Hideki fighters will take their shot at range 3 with 4 dice. They roll 2 hits, 1 crit, and a blank. I will use my bonus die for a primary weapon fired at me at range 3. I roll 2 blanks, 2 evades, 1 battle station, and once again Hikaru Sulu converts the battle station. So 3 evades, no damage taken from either attack. This is the first round of this match I actually feel like I won. I managed to destroy the biggest remaining threat my opponent has, while also demonstrating for him just how hard it's going to be for him to hit the Valiant, let alone try to destroy it. This is the round where you really start to see my confidence build. Executing a come-about maneuver here gives me an Ox token and denies me my Sulu action. However, I am confident enough in the strength of the Valiant that I believe I can deal with this and not have it cause me too much trouble. The most important thing for me this round is to make sure those fighters are destroyed. I roll my first attack against the Hidekis and I get a natural 3 hits, 1 crit, and a battle station. I opt not to spend the battle station token in this case. My opponent only has the 4 defense dice and no quality to modify them at all, and I feel pretty confident that he's not going to be able to roll 4 evades, and I might need that battle station token in the for the next attack, so I decide to hold on to it. It's a small gamble, but it does pay off. My opponent rolls 2 evades, 1 battle station, and a blank. He has no way to convert the battle station and nothing to do with the blanks, so he is going to take a hit here. Instead of losing his last fighter token, he does go ahead and sacrifice the support ship. I do roll my second attack against the fighters, and I do only roll a hit and a crit. In this case, I nearly forgot to use Natasha Yar for my rerolls, but I did remember at the last possible second, and even though my opponent had just about started to roll his defense dice based on the goodwill earned earlier when I went ahead and took the extra hit from the quantum torpedoes, Natasha Yar went ahead and went through and did end up making an impact here. Natasha Yar makes a big difference, adding 2 more crits and a hit. My opponent actually had rolled 2 evades on his evade die, so had I not remembered to use Natasha Yar, I would not have been able to finish the fighters in this round. Now it's time for the Cardassians to take their shot. This is a good chance for them to get some damage through because, again, I don't have Hikaru Sulu online. They roll a 4 dice primary weapon attack and do get 2 hits. I'll roll 2 defense dice +1 for a range 3 attack. I roll a battle station, evade, and a blank. I have nothing to do with the blank because Hikaru Sulu is not online for this round, and so I take 1 damage, which is the first hit the Valiant's taken the entire game. And just like that, in back-to-back rounds, we have a major turnaround in the game. I'm feeling very confident now, as the Defiant is a very difficult ship to hit, and it's an extremely difficult ship to destroy the way that it's built now. So I feel pretty strong about the remainder of this game at this point. I misjudged my maneuver in this round, and my opponent nails it perfectly. He winds up with a shooting solution, and I have nothing. Range 1 primary weapon, my opponent gets 5 dice. He rolls 2 hits and a crit. However, the Valiant proves once again to be a very tough ship to hit. Rolling 2 evades and a battle station, Hikaru Sulu converts the battle station for 3 evades, and I take no damage. At this point, the maneuvers are going to start to come fast and furious. My opponent, most of the time now, has his dial set before I even finish my attack, so things are going to start happening pretty quick here. As a quick side note, I'm doing a pretty terrible job of managing my Natasha Yar time tokens in this game. In a serious tournament, this would give me a real problem. In a casual game, it's not really a big deal, especially when it's only 2 time tokens for me to keep track of. This is definitely one among many areas of opportunity for me to improve. My opponent flies away, attempting to create some distance between himself and the Valiant. I have to do a 3 come about here, so I take an Ox, and I won't have Sulu for defense or a Battle Stations for offense. I roll a 5 dice attack at range 3, and I get 1 hit and 1 crit. I do have Natasha Yar online, and in this case I do elect to go ahead and re-roll those dice. My opponent's action this turn was Tetrion Emission, so he's getting significant amounts of bonus defense dice. It is a range 3 attack, and he raised his eyebrow a little bit at me using Yar this turn instead of next turn when I will have closed the distance. I feel like I want to play as aggressive as possible here and try to get some damage through as much as I'm able to do so. So I go ahead and use Yar on this turn. Natasha Yar does pay off and give me 3 additional hits for a total of 4 hits and 1 crit. My opponent, however, on his 5 dice without any modifiers, rolls 4 evades, so he only takes 1 damage. It's an excellent defense roll. The Gaylor class ship does have its aft weapons array online, and my opponent will shoot at me from his rear arc. He rolls 4 dice and gets 1 hit. Without Sulu, I only get 2 defense die. I do get a bonus for being at range 3. However, I roll 3 battle stations, and again, because I had to do the combat and have Ox, I don't have a battle stations token, so I take 1 hit to the shields. You could look at this round as a draw, as each ship takes 1 shield off the other ship. However, the Valiant build that I have here is significantly stronger than his Gaylor ship, and he just cannot afford to stay in that kind of battle where he's trading hit for hit with me. The other thing to keep in mind is that I did not have Sulu or battle stations in this round, and that will be the last time that I have to take an Ox for the rest of the game. So taking 1 shield off the Valiant when it's at its most vulnerable is not, all in all, a really great result. My goal in this round is to maneuver behind my opponent and stay right on his rear. His aft weapons array is disabled, and he will have to make a choice to either use his Tetrion emissions to get extra defense dice or re-enable his aft weapons array to be able to fire back at me. And that's a tough choice for him to have to make, and it's the exact position that I want to hold him in. I almost don't keep him in arc in this move, but it does end up working out brilliantly, and it sets me up perfectly for the remainder of the game. I will fire another primary weapon 5 dice attack at my opponent's Gaylord class ship, and unfortunately I only roll a crit and a battle station in 3 blanks. I use the battle station to convert to a hit, but my opponent on his Tetrion emission reinforced dice roll does roll 2 evades and manages to take no damage in this round. In retrospect, having Natasha Yar online this round as opposed to using her last round would have been preferable, but I still stand by my decision to stay aggressive during this period. My opponent does not have any aft weapons that are enabled, so he is unable to return fire this round, and the round is basically a net 0 for both of us. At this point in time, I hold the initiative. My opponent either has to re-enable his aft weapons array, make a red maneuver turn to get me within primary weapon firing arc, or use his Tetrion emissions for defense. So he's kind of behind the 8 ball as long as I can keep him right about in this position relative to the Valiant. My opponent elects to use his Tetrion emissions for extra defense. I roll my 5 dice primary weapon attack. I do get 3 hits and 2 blanks. I will go ahead and use Natasha Yar to re-roll the blanks. Natasha Yar nets me a battle station and a blank. I will spend my battle station token to turn that into 4 hits. My opponent continues to make good use of his Tetrion emissions. Rolling 4 defense dice, he continues to get above average results and does get 2 evades, so he takes 2 hits to his shields this round. Again, my goal this round is just to keep him in my forward arc. I'm not trying to close for a range 1 shot, so I do a pretty basic maneuver, take my Sulu action and my Picard battle stations, and get ready to do some shooting. This attack is a 2 crit, 1 hit, and 1 battle station attack. I will spend the battle station token to make it 2 crits and 2 hits. My opponent has used his Tetrion emissions ability again, so he will be rolling 4 defense dice. Once again, the defense dice are better than average for him. He rolls 2 evades and 2 blanks. If you're wondering how he's using Tetrion emissions every single round, he actually has 2 of them equipped to this ship, so he actually has at least 1 online every single round. 1 crit will take out his last shield, and the next crit will strike his hull. I believe he gets an injured captain. I don't recall exactly what the crit was, but it's not anything that had any impact on the game whatsoever, so not a very bad critical hit for him. This round, my opponent decides he's done with being on the defensive full time and opts for a 4 straight maneuver and to re-enable his aft weapons array. I did a bank 1 to the right, which keeps him firmly within range 2, firmly within my firing arc. He was hoping to get at least outside of range 2, and maybe even possibly get out of my arc altogether, depending on what I did in this next turn. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for him, but I certainly respect the maneuver. You can only play fully defensive for so long before it's time to try to turn some offense on. I'll be making a range 2 attack with 5 dice. I do have battle stations and Natasha Yar online for this attack. As fate would have it, I roll a natural 4 hits, 1 crit, no modifications necessary, and this is the round where he does not have his Tetrion emissions switched on. He has 1 defense dice, does roll an evade, but it's mathematically impossible for him to survive that attack regardless of how well he rolls there, and that is going to be the game, as the Gaylord class ship becomes the 3rd victim of the Valiant tonight. This was a great and very enjoyable game. I want to thank my opponent, who put a really good fleet on the table and also did an excellent job of piloting it. In the early game, it definitely looked like he was going to run away with it. Fortunately, this game does showcase that just because you're behind early doesn't mean that you can't turn it around and win it. And you know, maybe one or two really good rounds that go in your favor can really totally change the direction of the game. The other thing that I appreciated about this game is it once again showed just how potent that build on the Valiant is. I really love flying that ship, and it every time I put it on the table, it shows its worth and demonstrates just how great it really is. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed this match. Please keep an eye on the channel for more Star Trek Attack Wing content. I am going to try to upload at least 2 videos a week. If you're interested, feel free to subscribe. I would really appreciate if you guys would throw some comments in the video below. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and what you guys would like to see from the channel in the future. And I'll do my best to accommodate all the requests that we possibly can on the channel. With that said, this is Captain Ironsides. You have been watching Task Force Viking. Thanks a lot, and I'll catch you next time.